think the important thing is that people don't think that anything's going to happen to them.
No.
And so they think, oh, I don't have to worry about planning for that, because that's like, it's like, I live in Las Vegas. So yes, once in a while we'll have an earthquake, a little bit of a shake here. And it usually happens in California. It trembles over here. Once in a while, we've had a drought, obviously, for years now. We've had some flash flooding that's caused some problems, and we've had a few fires. But most of the people within the proper of Las Vegas don't believe that they have to worry about it. Well, the bottom line is we are impacted no matter where the disaster is. We're impacted financially, we're impacted FEMA. So in 2019, the average cost, if you looked at from 1980 to 2019, the average cost for disasters, weather disasters, not earthquakes, not man-made, just weather-related disasters that were $1 billion or more, was $46.8 billion per year. 2020, it was $126.8 billion per year. Do you know what it was for 2021? $145.1 billion. Now you add the pandemic to that, you add, and another very interesting statistic, cyber attacks. So when I was writing the training in 2019, I looked up the statistic, and it said that over the next 5 years, we're going to experience $7.1 trillion as a cost from cyber attacks. Guess what? 2021, it was $7.1 trillion.
It's like in both those cases, the frequency is just, increasing exponentially, right?
Absolutely.
And there's no end in sight. So truly crisis proportions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I want to change course here, and I want to talk a little bit about you were, and you still do some forecasting, a chief economist for the California Association of Realtors. And this new man in your life was the National Association of Realtors chief economist. So there's a little bit of economics going on in your household, I believe.
Yes.
One of the things that I try to stress to people, and especially people in the real estate industry, is that how important it is for them to be aware of what is happening in our country and in our world, and the economic impact that it has on our business. And one of the things when I was writing the course on insurance, and I just updated that portion of the course, I was reading something, and it was very, very scary. There are reinsurers out there that are now saying that homes could become uninsurable in the future. And we have places right now where you can't find insurance, or you have to go through the FAIR Plan or something like that.
Right.
Talk a little bit about the economic consequences of natural as well as man-made disasters on the real estate industry.
Well, currently, a little less than half, about 43% of the homes in the United States are at high or very high risk of damage from natural disasters. So this is not something that's going to happen somewhere else away from me. When you look at, and let's just take the big picture, drought, hurricanes, flood, fire, tornadoes, earthquakes, it's coming from all quarters. And as we've established, the frequency in some of these cases is getting very, 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 very high frequency, right? And so it's something you really need to be aware of in terms of investing in your home. What kind of things could you do to kind of mitigate some of these issues? But when you're buying a home, understanding what the insurance availability is and what the cost is, because there's national flood insurance, because why? You really need to spread the risk. And unfortunately, as things are happening more frequently, it's hard to find a pool that the private sector finds attractive, right? Because, all of a sudden, you don't get hurricanes up in New York until you have Hurricane Sandy, so it's really a challenge. And then when you look at the data, the safe homes in safer areas are appreciating at a much higher rate than the homes in the at-risk areas, in part because of the cost of this insurance. So I think it's raising a lot of questions going forward that is really going to reach it's going to be tough, right? Because we need more affordable housing. And that's really the sad part when you look at places like Paradise in California, where people went there because it was more affordable. The Bay Area is very expensive. Sacramento had gotten expensive for some of these families. And yet here they are right in the middle of a firestorm. So just from an economic perspective, it's very costly to mitigate the impact of these unpredictable but expected events. And I think, as you look at the migration patterns over the last 2 years with the pandemic, where it's like work from home, work from anywhere, and parts of the country that weren't that desirable are looking much more much desirable because they have affordable housing. I think that's going to be the natural disasters is just going to feed into that as well. But to a certain extent, there's really nowhere to hide, right? That it truly is everywhere. So I think your approach is be realistic and plan and understand what the costs are going to be, because you don't want to invest in this wonderful opportunity to own a home and have it go up in flames and be left with nothing. You've really got to plan that into the decision that you're making and where you're going to be living.
Well, I think that's such a good point. Like, so for example, let's talk about tornadoes. It used to be tornadoes were in Tornado Alley, upper part of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, smaller part of Nebraska, and then on over east. Now, I mean, just 2 weeks ago, there was a tornado in January in Florida.
Yes.
And I think that is the part that people don't understand. It's like the drought. So when I was looking at the drought maps, every month I provide a course or a training that the real estate community can take out to their communities and educate their civic organizations, churches, and that sort of thing. And I was writing one on tornadoes and storms. And I looked at the updated maps, and it really, and then you take a look at the drought. And the drought, I mean, it started out was primarily the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington. Last year, it went all the way across the United States to North Dakota. And what happened? The fires then went all the way across to North Dakota and all the way through Texas. So what you're seeing is there is no safe place anymore. And the cost factor is just growing by leaps and bounds with the extremes that we're having.
Just stunning numbers.
Yeah,
and even on the other side of the coin, in Florida, out in the Keys, the water's been rising, and there are people that are living on these, small islands that need their roads rebuilt, lifted up, and their houses lifted up, and they're looking to the government, to fund that. And it really becomes a public policy issue, is how much of this is going to be paid for out of public funds, and how much of it is the responsibility of homeowners that maybe bought this land and this home on this island, 40 years ago when this wasn't an issue. So this is only going to grow in terms of its importance to everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and one of the statistics that really got me was at the Sustainability Summit was, if we do not change and start reducing our carbon footprint by 2030, that's 8 years. 8 years. If we don't start reducing that, it could be irreversible.
Yeah.
And even if we do reverse it, it's going to take 25 years or more to offset the damage that's already been done. So my grandkids, my great-grandchild is going to be experiencing this as an adult. And so it's really, I get really passionate about it, because it's like, okay, I want to take some people and just shake them and say, hey, wake up. This is important. And you have to slap them in their pocketbook, right? Well, people don't understand what it's costing already. I mean, power outages last year, they were up around $5 billion cost in just power outages. And it's like, okay, so that's affecting everybody. If you take a look at just about any kind of, it costs us an average of over $5 billion a year for nuclear power plant incidents, over $5 billion a year. And you take that and you add that to the natural disasters and the the other types of disasters like the mass shootings and the deaths and all of that. Pretty soon that number becomes trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. And so we can't just sit back and say, oh, well, it's not affecting me. I'm not going to have, I'm not going to have a disaster hurricane at my house. I'm living in Las Vegas, right?
Right.
So, well, this is going to be going out to a lot of real estate agents and brokerages. So what would be a good piece of advice that you could give to them that they could maybe take to their community and in regards to the economics of what's happening?
I think it's all about local information and finding out kind of what the weak parts are, where the vulnerabilities are, what the insurance market looks like. I think I guess this is, maybe a shameless plug, but I think the certification that you've come up with, Connie, is really just brilliant in terms of really digging down and becoming an expert in this, because clients need to know, right? So I think that would be my advice. Be aware, and I think most realtors are, but study it and have the data available for existing homeowners and for clients that are looking in that area, so that they can prepare themselves and understand what might lie ahead.
I think you're absolutely right. And I also think that this is an opportunity. I always talk about crystalline moments. Crystalline meaning sparkly or clear, so moments of clarity. Disasters of any kind are crystalline moments. And there's always a gift or opportunity. And when it comes to the real estate professional, there is a particular opportunity for them to become the superheroes in their communities and help their communities shine. If they just look at their own insurance policy and say, okay, what have I got? And what are the other things that are out there? What might my client need to have? And say, look, here's an insurance agent if you don't have one in the area, or here, go talk to your insurance agent and make sure you've got the right kind of coverage on your home. Because the number is astronomical. It's something like 60% or 70% of homes are underinsured.
Right.
And so, as a real estate professional, going out there and being able to say, hey, this is something you need to look at. These are the risk factors in this particular area. This is what you can do to mitigate against them. Being able to go out and train your community on being prepared. How many disaster kits do you really need to have? A minimum of 4. Those types of things that you can take to your community that will make you shine and really stand out. So who are they going to call when it comes time for their real estate needs?
Right, 100%. And the person that can be there in a crisis, which I think we've kind of commented on, that people aren't really going to take things seriously until it impacts them. And as that becomes increasingly likely, it's the person that has the plan and the information that's really going to be of value and of service to that group. So I'm really so glad that you couched this in terms of the crystalline moment, the fact that don't waste a crisis, really
right.
Make this an opportunity for positive and meaningful change. Because when you look at, over 35 million properties in the United States are in that vulnerable category, that's a lot of housing, right? And that's a lot of households that could possibly be disruptive. So I would flip this around and say, what an amazing opportunity to make a difference in your community.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I am going to put one shameless plug for the book. When the Unthinkable Happens, Be Prepared, Be Ready is launching the 17th. And this is going to be airing on the 17th. So it's launch day. And the beauty of it, I wrote this book as a guide, a simple guide of where to start, whether you have a small business, whether you're individually, of what you need to do to start with. And as a real estate professional, you have the opportunity, you can put your chapter in the book and use it as a great marketing tool. So that's my plug. There you go.
That's a perfect segue, Connie. What a great suggestion.
So, well, Leslie, I love talking to you all the time. And you're just a joy. So thank you so much for being a part of my life.
Thank you for asking me. It's just been a real pleasure to be on with you today, Connie.
All right, everybody. I will be back with another amazing interview with my Kick Butt Leadership series. Talk to you soon.